Hi everyone, my name is Burak Güzel and welcome to another episode of CodeIgniter from scratch. And this week's topic is the shopping cart library. And we're going to look at the functionality of this library, and also later on we'll build a page where we have a number of products and we can add them to a shopping cart with one click, and they'll have their prices and options, and we'll also be able to remove them from the cart one by one. And so let's get started by downloading CodeIgniter, and I have it here with along with my htaccess file you've probably seen before. It just allows me to get rid of index.php from the URLs, and I took out the application folder out of the system folder. So first thing I do, as always, is just go to configuration files and set up my configuration options, such as the URL, and we don't need index.php. And I'm going to autoload a few things here. We will also be using the database library to store the products and fetch their information from. I will also autoload the cart library since we're going to be using it, and I will also autoload some helpers such as form, HTML, and URL. And that's it. And now we have to set up our database information. I use localhost root with no password, and I have a database named CI series. And that's that. So let's get started with looking at how the shopping cart works. I'm going to go ahead and create a new controller file, which will be just as a test. I'm going to call it just cart test.php. Extending the controller class. So let's see how the first thing we're going to do is to add an item to a shopping cart. So you might have a website with products, and so you will then add the information of the products into a shopping cart when like a user hits a button that says add to cart. And this is done by calling the insert function of this shopping cart library. We auto loaded the shopping cart, so we can access it by just going this cart. And insert function wants an array. So let's create this array. We need to pass it an internal ID we use for the product. That should usually be the ID field in your products table, or it could be something like a SKU ID or a barcode or whatnot, some unique identifier about each product. So another field that's required is a name. For example, let's add pants, and quantity. So if you're just adding one, you put one. If it's more, you put another number. And price is of course required. And also, if there are any kinds of options related to this product, for example, there could be different sizes, so that can be passed. This is optional. There's an options parameter you can pass, which is an array because you can have multiple options. But let's say you just have one, and let's call it size. And just like this, they can be added. And let's open this in the browser. I'm also going to add here, add colon. This is just a test, and this is my URL, cart test add. Okay, add was called, and so the item is now inside the shopping cart. But how do we see it? Do we display it? There's a function. Let's create another controller function here. There's a way to get the contents of the shopping cart by calling this cart contents. This will return the shopping cart along with its contents, and to show you the structure, I'm just going to print R the results. Print R the cart, and so since we added a product, it should show once we go to show. As you can see, it's an array, and there's this unique internally generated ID number, and this is called a row ID, and this will be generated for every time a product is added to the shopping cart. It's different than its own ID that you passed, which I passed a 42 as the ID number, but the row ID was generated by CodeIgniter because the same product can be added multiple times with different options, for example. That's why it needs a unique identifier. So the name, the price, the options are all here, and subtotal. The subtotal is slightly different than price. Price is the price of an individual item, but if the quantity is anything other than one, it gets multiplied by that number, and then that becomes the subtotal. So let's see, if we add one more item, let's see how the shopping cart is going to look like. I'm just going to copy paste the other one. Say add 2 is called, and this time I'm just changing the ID and make this a t-shirt. Let's make this quantity 2 this time, and price is $7.99, and size, let's say it's large. So just calling this new add to function, and we can go ahead and check what's in the cart. As you can see, the t-shirt is added into this array, and it has its own row ID again, and the price and subtotal, as you can see, is the price times 2, the quantity is the subtotal. Now, once you have things in the cart, you have the option to update them. So for instance, if I go ahead and call a function named this cart update, which also expects an array, and this array, let's say the person accidentally added 2 t-shirts and want to change it to just one. I have to refer to that row ID in the cart. So on this thing, the row ID needs to be passed in this array. For example, the t-shirt was this row ID. I will pass it, and so I'm changing the quantity, so I can add that and change it to 1. So right now it's 2 t-shirts, and I'll just call this update function I created and show the cart again. As you can see, t-shirt is now only 1, quantity times the price is the subtotal. So there's also a way to see the absolute total of the shopping cart, and that is by calling cart total. So if we have 19.99 plus 7.99, there's going to be a total. Instead of calculating this by looping through this stuff, you can just call the total function, and it's going to show it's 27.98, which is the total. It's just this cart total. Also, you can remove items, and this is actually going to be very similar to the update function. It's actually going to be exactly the same, except this time you change the quantity to 0, and once you do that, it's removed from the cart completely. It's not just going to say quantity 0, it's just going to be gone. Let's say echo remove called. Maybe I should put here echo update called, just to be consistent. If I open that page, remove was called, and go back to displaying my shopping cart, and right here you see the t-shirt is gone and just have the pants left. Also, you can completely erase the contents of the shopping cart by it is called destroy. So you just call this cart destroy, sorry, and destroy called. This could be a way to let a surfer clear out their shopping cart. And now it's all blank. So I think this is enough for us to get started on building our little shopping cart page. But first I want to go to the database. And here I have a database called CI series, and I created a table named products. This table is simple. It's just if you look at the structure, as a primary key ID, and there's a name field, varchar, then there's a price field, it's a decimal, and then there's an image field to designate the thumbnail, and there's the option name and option values. And let me explain these. Some products will have options, like for example, some will have colors, some will have sizes, and then there will be possible values for those options. So I decided to store them this way. There's no exact way to store them. This is just the way I chose to do it. So we'll be able to use these 3 different products to display on the shopping cart page. So this is just a simple setup. There are no categories or anything. So I will go back. Also, I need those images here, image files. I will create a folder named images. Oh, this should be outside. And in this images folder, I'm going to put those thumbnails. And I have them on my computer, and you'll be able to download this when you download the source code. Okay, here they are. Just those 3 products thumbnails. And to get started, we can just create a controller named, I'll just call it shop, and it's going to be class shop extend controller. So I will put a default function, just index, and I would like to get the products from the database and display them, and maybe it's a good idea to have a model that will handle this. So for example, I will be able to load this model by going this load model, and let's say it's called products model, and I will be able to fetch by calling this products model, and have a method in this model class named, let's say, get all. This will fetch all the products from the database, and then I can pass that to a view. So I might have mentioned before, I like to keep the controllers as slim as possible and just let mostly the models do the work. So to be able to do this, now I need to have this products model. That's why I'm going to create this PHP file. under the models folder. Um, Now there's going to be some database interaction, and we auto-loaded the database library, so it's going to be available by just going like this db, and there's an easy function in the database library that just fetches everything from a table, and that's just called get, and you pass the table name, so it's like a select star with no where clause, and once you fetch it, you can also call result on it to fetch the resulting rows. Now get um, this will get all these rows from the table, but this field is more like an array of values. I separated them by commas, so I want to split these. That's why I'm going to loop through. Um, I'm going to loop through them and do that manually here. So if you put ampersand, it's passing by reference in the loop, so you can directly edit that variable. Result. If there is option values, because some of the rows, for example, I added a rubber ducky which doesn't have any options, but the other ones do. I'm going to call the explode function to split at the comma. I'm going to split the option values. So instead of having a string like this, it's going to be an array of 3 items. And once that's done, just return this results array. So now the shop controller has this, passes it to a view named products. So I need to have that view created. Before I do that, just to show you how far along we are, I'm going to, without loading the view, I'm going to just do a print r again. Print r products. Before we start dealing with the view, let me show you what it's looking like. So it's going to be shop. As you can see, it's like 3 rows of, these are actually objects, not exactly arrays, but it's very similar. And so, as I did the splitting of the string, those option values fields became arrays. So yeah, it's working. I can get rid of this and continue on plugging this into the view. I'm going to create a blank HTML5 file. Oops, not like this. And I don't need JavaScript. Let's give it a title. Okay. Let's use a div with ID products. There will be another div with ID. Actually, I can put that here. This will be the cart later on. So the products, since it's a list of products, let's use the UL tag. And for each, through the products, that's product. And this is the PHP short syntax. You should be familiar with this. And for each. So each item will be li, each list item. And as I showed you before, there's a little form button for like there's add to cart button. So each one of these will have a little form, um, so that that button can work. That's why I'm going to open this with the form open function, and it's going to post to a shop controller add method, and it's also going to close the form. And so each of these items have a name, they have an image, there's a price, and there's the options. So let's create those as these separate divs. And I'm going to add classes now so that I can style them later on. Now, as I showed you, I'm looping through this array right now, and in this for each that I'm building, and these guys have name, price, etc. So I'm going to be using those, and these are in object notation because that's how the database returns it instead of the array format. So the next thing would be the thumbnail. And here I'm going to use an HTML helper function named image to, it's just img, and you pass an array, and this array needs to contain this the location of the image as the source src, so it's under images and product image, which comes from the database, and you can pass it a CSS class, so it can be styled, and you can pass it like an alt tag, alt attribute, and I'll set that as the name of the product. Also then we need to include price. The price is only a number, so before the number I'm going to put a $sign, and then I can echo the product price. And after this, well, let's look at how this looks. Shop. Well, there's an error. Okay, this should be image, not images. Okay, now this is gonna look much better later on when we style it, but we got the name, the image, the price, and we want to add a drop-down menu for selecting the option. So that's going to be another div. Let's call it class option. And this time I'm going to use, well, first I'm going to put a label on it, and this will only show if there's an option, so I gotta put a conditional if product has an option name, and an end if that's the case, then I'm going to echo a label, and there's a form label function, part of the form helper of CodeIgniter, which helps us do this. And there are two main parameters to this function. The first one is the name of the the first one is what goes into the tag, and the second option is the for part of the label. So let me show you. Product option name, and so it's going to turn into something like label for blah blah blah, and the label. So the label will be the option name like size or color, and the for should be a unique identifier or like the ID attribute of the drop down that we're going to put. And to have a unique identifier here, I'm just going to use the product's ID. So for that, I'm just gonna call it option underscore product ID. And now we're going to put that drop down. So it's also another form helper here, form drop down. Form drop down. It's actually no underscore here. And this takes a number of parameters. I'm going to go through them. So the name of the field, let's call it just the name of the option, so if it's a size or color, etc. And then the second parameter is the option, the items in the drop-down menu, and these are going to be our option values. So it's like small, large, medium. Those are going to be under product option values. And I'm going to skip the third parameter. This is for choosing the default selected option. And I'm going to go to the fourth, which is going to be the ID attribute, and this is going to be the same as this option underscore product ID. Oh, by the way, this should be product arrow ID, so that the label matches the input field. Close the quotes, and that's it. And let's look at it again. See, the horse has the color options, and then the t-shirt has the size options as a drop down. Now we need to put the add to cart button under each of these products. So I'm going to go ahead and before closing the form here, I'm going to put echo form submit. Just going to be a little submit button. Give it a name, and then the contents of the form, it's just going to say add to cart. Also, since I have to specify which product this form is going to submit for, I have to pass, for example, the ID, and that will identify which product we're adding. For that, I'm going to use a hidden field by using the form hidden function, and put the product ID in it. Okay. So now this is going to be posting to a function named add under the shop controller. So we need to create that and use that to add stuff to the shopping cart. But before that, I'm going to show you how it looks like with the form finished. It's just like this. Maybe before we go ahead any further, I'm just going to add some CSS so this looks a little better. In the header section, I'm just going to quickly add some styling. Set a font for everything. And the products div, I want everything to be aligned, center, and floated to the left, because there's going to be a shopping cart div also. So I want them next to each other. And so the list, I'm going to get rid of these dots by calling list style type none, and I don't really want a margin, so now let's look at the list items. Let's set a width because I want to add borders, also some padding. Let's add a 1 pixel grayish border and a background color. Sorry, this is the boring part, but it's just a lot of typing. Okay, it should be looking a little better now. Okay, well, the dots are not gone. Oh, this was supposed to be UL. Okay, the dots are gone. This color. Okay, now the border is there. Now let's do something about the names, make them a little bigger and space things out a little bit. Let's go products name. If you don't want to watch me type CSS, you can fast forward this part. It's not that interesting. So option. Okay. And then later on we're going to have a cart and add some more styling for that. But so far, so good. Okay. So these should be going to shop/add, which doesn't exist. That's why I get a 404. And let's build that function add. Again, I want to utilize this products model, and this time I'm going to use it to get an individual product so that I can add this product's information to the cart. I get the ID number from this form. When you hit add to cart, you get the size, or I mean the option and the ID number of the product, but I don't get the name, the pricing, or anything like that needs to be fetched from the database. So I want to have, instead of typing the database query here, I will use the products model and get. I'll just have a function named get, and it will use the ID that's coming in from the post, and we'll assign that to product. So eventually we're adding this to the cart by the insert function that as I showed before. So let's give it like an insert array that's going to be inserted to this, and this insert array will have things like the ID, name, quantity, things like that. So let's start adding those. The ID will be, again, the post ID, and the quantity will be 1. The price will be the product's price. The name will be product's name. And also the option that's selected, if you look at it from Firebug, you see it's a drop down, and the values will be like 0, 1, 2. it's instead of white, black, brown, because we just passed a regular array. We didn't pass value um, into the form helper. So to translate these numbers into the actual options, we also need to do something here. So I'm going to, if this product does have options, then um, let's split. No, we're not going to split. This time we're just going to, as I showed you before, the options are passed as an array. That's why this insert array will have a key named options, which will be an array. As I showed you earlier in the test, the options will be an array. So it's going to be the option name and the value. So the the key is the option name. So we can just get it by going product option name. But the value, we have to use the option values of the product, which is an array, and the index we're looking for is posted in there in this input post, and the field name is the product's option name, because this one, the field name is the same as the option. So if it's like color, then the field name, let me click here, the name is also color. So I mean, you can change the way that works, but so I'm going to put here the option name. So that should pass the option of the product into the cart along with the ID, quantity, price, and name. So once we have that, it should be passed. Well, we don't actually have to pass it. We can just from the within the view, you can access the shopping cart by going this cart contents. So if cart, I'm doing this so I can demonstrate that things have been added to the cart. If I clicked add to cart, get, oh, of course we didn't create this function named get, which should be very easy. Just going to be fetching one field from one row from the database, and it's going to be doing it based on the ID number. So there's another database function here, get where. This takes two parameters. The first one is the table name, and the second one is the where condition, which is we're looking for the ID. So ID is the ID parameter passed to the function, and we're interested in the result of this. So let's assign it to results. Now this will be like a array of results, and we're only interested in one result, so we can get just the first item out of that array. And we have to do the same thing as we did in the other function. I'm just going to copy paste, and if there's option values, split them with explode, and then finally just return this single result. So if you refresh, well, we went to shop add, but we didn't go back to the shop. So, well, if we go back to the shop, you'll see the print R showing the contents of the cart. So it is working, but we need to make this forwarding automatic. So once it's inserted to the cart, we need to just redirect to shop. Alright, so I'll add another item, and it's working, it's redirecting. I'll add a black horse. It keeps adding to the shopping cart. Alright, so let's just clear out the shopping cart by going to our test where we destroy. Okay, destroy. Now go back to shop. Shopping cart should be empty. And now it's time to display the shopping cart's contents a little more properly here. And I'm going to take this if statement outside of the div. So if there's stuff, we're going to display a shopping cart contents, and this will have a table, and there's going to be a caption to the table, and the columns will be like item name, the option that was selected, the price of the item, and another column that's just going to be for removing it. There's going to be a little X link to remove an item. Let's loop through the shopping cart as item, and for each. So now we have every single item looping through them. We can get things like the name and name, option, price, etc. I'm going to put them in these table cells. Item name, this is going to be a little complicated. I'm going to skip that for now. The next one is the price, and the name of the field is not actually price, but it's the subtotal, because if there's more than one item, it gets multiplied. So you want to use a subtotal instead of price, and put a $sign in front of it too. And I will have a link for, and call this, give this a class, and there will be a link for removing each item, and it will just say X. I will use a link helper named anchor, and link to shop remove. There will be a function named remove under shop controller, and it's going to need the item's row ID from the cart, so that it knows which item from the cart to remove. And it's just going to say X here. And at the end, there should be a row for the total. Total. Make this bold. And we can get, as I mentioned earlier, we can get the total of the shopping cart by this cart total, and add a $sign. So that should do that. Okay, adding items to the shopping cart seems to be working. And you can add the same item with different options and we'll show multiple times. But now we need to display this option column. I said it was going to be a little more complicated, but it's fine. And we want to do this only if there's another shopping cart function we're going to use. It's called has options. So it will tell us if there are any options for the item in the shopping cart, and we have to pass the row ID. So if that's the case, well, even though we're going to have only one option, I'm just going to use this for each to fetch that singular array elements. So to get the options, you just go product discard product options and again pass the row ID, and then you can inside of a for each you can get that as, let's say, option value and let's echo the options name. This will be the name, and column and the value. So the option would be something like color or size, and value would be small, medium, large, or white, black, brown. So let's look at the shopping cart again. We see the options. Okay, it's time to add some more CSS for our shopping cart, and I'll just copy from here. Let's give this table a width of 320. Since we're going to have a little border, we want to collapse that border. Left. And I want to add a little border at the end of these header cells. Also increase the caption size, font size. Okay, we're almost done getting through the boring part again, and the total will be displayed in a little bigger cell or a higher cell, and the remove link, let's make that red. Alright, now okay, that looks much better. Now this shopping cart has this remove functionality which doesn't do anything right now, but it goes to this shop controller remove function and passes the row ID. So let's make that work by going back to our shop and add the remove function. And that ID will be passed just like a parameter to this controller function from the URL. This will be the parameter. We'll name it row ID, and just like I showed you at the beginning of the tutorial, you just call the update function if you want to remove an item and pass it an array with the row ID and the quantity of 0. So row ID is this past row ID and quantity is 0. And once we're done, we just redirect back to the shop. Alright, now I can click. There, it gets removed from the cart. Obviously, you can add some more functionality to this, like having the quantities into shopping cart, being able to update them, and clearing out the shopping cart, things like that. Um, you can also modify the shopping cart library to include things like shipping and have like a checkout page, etc. So use your imagination. I hope this is a good starting point, and I hope you learned from it. So I'll see you next time. Bye.